Most people assume that if they just eat whole foods, the weight will take care of itself. But after coaching nearly 600 men and women towards their ideal healthy weight range over the last 5 or 6 years, my hot take is that's not always true, actually far from it. In fact, today we're going to talk about 5 silent killers that could be holding you back, even if you're eating a directionally really healthy diet. First up though, meal of the day. If you're new, this is what we do. We got the yog bowl, it's back, the yogurt bowl. And today I've got me plant yogurt, mango, a little bit of nectarine. We're all out of berries in the shop. Sadly, I love my berries on this. But hey ho, we've got a couple of tablespoons worth of quick oats here. Got our hemp seeds again. I don't know how much you'll be able to make all of this stuff out. Bit of maple syrup over. Good heaping, as we love here, of the old cinnamon over the top to give it some extra flavor. Sometimes I'll do a bit of stevia and mix that into the yogurt. Sometimes I actually take the cinnamon and mix that into the yogurt. Sometimes I'll do a cacao powder version, mix that in. There's all sorts of stuff you can add. You can add cacao nibs actually on that note. You could add, various fruits. Sometimes instead of doing oats, I'll add muesli or cereal. So this is why I love it, and actually why the all-in-one yogurt bowl is fast becoming one of the more popular dishes amongst my clients, because there's like 20 or 30, 50, 100 unlimited variations you can do with these. Love them. Right, back to business then. Silent killer number 1, you're eating cleanly, but how is your portion control? And maybe you start really diligently with this, weighing and measuring things out. You've got your little food scale, you've got your measuring cups there, and you do stick to this initially, but life happens. You get really busy. Maybe consciously or subconsciously, you get a little bit complacent. You feel quite confident. Oh, I've been measuring and weighing things for 2 weeks now. The scale is going down. I can afford to take some liberties here. I know what a cup of quick oats looks like, don't I? Oh, you're a bit generous. You're a bit generous when you go and scoop that supposedly 14 grams of peanut butter out from the jar. And these things really do add up. I think we can safely say it ain't the broccoli florets doing this, because there isn't a massive calorie change between 1 cup of broccoli florets and 2 cups of broccoli florets. This is actually likely where people are not going wrong in terms of portion control. But think about the more calorific contributors to your diet, those sort of maybe more starchy carbohydrate sources, a very good example of this. And then of course the protein sources, certainly the healthy fats like our nut butter, avocado. If we're going for any tahini and lots of our dressings, like a lot of you guys like to do on my channel here, there is a really big difference between 10 and 20 grams of tahini if you're doing that every single day, multiple times per day, potentially. What's the solution to all of this? Well, firstly, it starts with the reframe that healthy doesn't mean bottomless. Healthy sadly doesn't mean unlimited. There is such a thing still as too much healthy food from a weight loss perspective. And the awareness does matter. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to start counting calories or tracking every single macronutrient you eat to perfection. But it might just involve being a little bit more disciplined and honest when you assume that you're using 100 grams of X, Y, and Z in your diet. Silent killer number 2, I reckon you might guess this one, calories from liquids, smoothies even, but certainly oat lattes and juices, alcohol. It's rather easy to consume 150, 200, 300, 400 calories from these things throughout the day without even noticing all that much. I want to be crystal clear here. Calories from liquids are not inherently more or less fattening than eating calories, the equivalent calories, in their whole food form. But what some people do report back is without that chew factor present, there can be a difference in terms of perceived satisfaction from the liquid calories. And if anecdotally you observe you raise your hand when I say that, you need to integrate that information into your plan and observe that. But liquid calories themselves are not inherently fattening, more fattening I should say, than eating the equivalent in their whole food form is what I'm trying to say. So it's not the avoidance of liquid calories being the solution here, because that's what some people say, ban liquid calories. What's that saying? I wrote it here somewhere. Where is it? I'll say, if you wouldn't eat it with a spoon, you might be better off skipping it. I'm kind of like, I get it, for some people that's a valuable mantra, but I'm kind of like, I don't really like that because, again, presumed liquid calories are bad. They're not. I think where people are going wrong, though, and herein lies the solution, is they're treating the beverages like they're free. Like there isn't a cost to them, but there's a calorie contributor, unless it's water or herbal tea or straight black coffee, there's a calorie contributor to this stuff, so you need to factor it in. And so again, it's not about avoiding liquid calories, but it's about accounting for them and taking ownership of them and actually knowing. It's like some people, when they consume a beverage, they don't realize they're consuming the same amount of calories as a very large snack or a small meal, but they're still treating it like a beverage and having the snack anyway. So this is where I think you need to be really careful. Silent killer number 3, we've all done this one, snacking and grazing on healthy foods, and I'm talking particularly things like dried fruit, like our medjool dates coming in at 60 to 70 calories a piece perhaps. We're thinking nuts and seeds, of course, really nutritious, right? You might find a really clean trail mix and think, oh, this is really healthy. What about something like a granola without so many of the added nasties? Yes, we can say these are nutritious choices, but they're mightily calorific. I want to be clear on this as well, that a food containing calories, even when you're in a weight loss phase, is not necessarily your enemy. You don't need to be like, oh my goodness, it contains lots of calories. You can fit it into your diet if you're in a weight loss phase, so long as you finish every day in a calorie deficit. You can absolutely do that. What you should be very worried about, though, is foods that are high in calorie but don't offer you much fullness and satisfaction for all of those calories. And I think that's the problem with consuming too many of the aforementioned items when you're in a dedicated weight loss phase, because they're so calorific, albeit healthy. So what's the solution here? Instead, think things like fresh fruit, higher volume, lower calorie density items. So fresh fruit rather than dried fruit. We can even do something like an oil or butter-free air pop popcorn sounds a bit boring, doesn't it? But you throw on some salt, maybe some nutritional yeast, give it some savory. Maybe you do it sweet and just do some stevia on there. It's a really good treat. And you can eat a lot of popcorn for very low calories when there isn't all the butter and oil present, I assure you. Maybe even something like raw veggies with a little bit of a low-fat, oil-free hummus. That can be a good option. Even something like rice and corn cakes, they might be 25, 30 calories a piece, and you can add some low-fat, low-calorie spread, again, like a hummus, or maybe even a small layer of nice natural jelly or jam. All right? It's not going to be that calorific if you manage this stuff correctly. I think these things are a lot better than those very calorific sort of handful snacks. Number 4, of course, eating out too often. Even if you go and seek out those more whole foodsy restaurant options, dishes still use lots of oil in many cases. Maybe they've got oversized portions, even if it looks relatively clean. You don't know how many calories are in those rich, tasty dressings. You got to think, restaurants want to, the most obvious thing I've ever said, restaurants want to make their food taste good. So of course they're adding all those creamy, rich, fatty things where they can to get you to go back, and combining that with a lot of salt as well to just give you this amazing, insatiable, wow, this tastes delicious. And so yeah, these are what people refer to as hidden calories, because you can't always see them in the layers of your poke bowl or the dressing on your salad. Hey, I chose a salad. I did well tonight in the restaurant. Little did you know that dressing's 200 calories for a couple of tablespoons worth of dressing. Wow, oh wow, and did you account for it? Solutions, of course, not the avoidance of eating out, because who wants to live like a hermit? That's not really realistic over the long term. Are you really going to stick to weight loss if you have to prepare every meal in the kitchen? No, that's not going to be sustainable, and that's what we're all about here. So you can still eat out, but really I figure you need to go into it with a compensatory mindset where, yeah, I know I have the flexibility to eat out, but it gets accounted for, it gets built into my diet rather than being a special addition on my diet. That's the thinking. And something to help with this that I teach my clients is what I call the plus 150 calorie rule. If you think you've gone to a restaurant and, hey, I've ordered something really clean, this is going to be around 400, 500 calories for me, this is a nice ballpark for me, add your 150 calories. And sometimes this might be slightly over the top, but at least it's more on the conservative side. But at least you've then maybe made some wiggle room there for the little sauces and the dressings, and you compensate, right? And you don't want to get too extreme with this, but maybe if there's a day where you're eating out once or twice because you're traveling, you make sure your step count is extra high that day. Or rather, you don't have that afternoon snack that you usually do, and you spare that 100, 120, 150 calories to just give you that little bit of leeway. So when you can eat out, you eat out. When you do eat out, rather, you eat out guilt-free, and you make a relatively healthy choice, but you know that you've accounted for the oils, the dressings, the risk of oversized portions. Number 5, lastly, but most certainly not least, and I'm chuckling because we've all done this one, haven't we? We all know this one rather too well. It's that weekend mindset, right? We're structured, we're regimented Monday to Friday, 5 days of clean eating, living in that calorie deficit, feeling pretty awesome. But then we undo it with 2 days where we let our guards down, that more relaxed eating, which is easy to do with the emotions, the associations, the different environments that we're in at the weekend versus in that very structured, for most of us, working week. Again, you need to think of weekends as part of the plan, not a break from it, not a blowout, not a free-for-all, not a reward for your good eating during the week. If you're serious, just staying on track, those extra 2 days versus 5 days can make a massive difference in terms of your results. Let's say you're living in a 300-400 calorie deficit Monday to Friday, and that reaches about 1,500 calories over Monday to Friday in terms of calories below maintenance. And then on the weekend, you have that extra almond croissant, you have that baked good, you have your oat latte with it on the side, and you eat some healthy foods. You eat a lot of the meals you do from the week. And there's these little extras here, and you grab half a pack of the M&Ms and you munch on those whilst you're watching a movie, and you think, all right, this isn't perfect, there's calories in this stuff, but it's not that bad. It's not as bad as how weekends used to be for me, and I've done well in the week, and the rest of today has been pretty good. It's not going to be enough to stop weight loss, right? You've suddenly added 500, 600, 700 calories to your diet on that day alone. You do that twice over the weekend. Yeah, you're flirting very dangerously with undoing that 1,500 calorie total accumulated calorie deficit that you achieved Monday to Friday. Sorry for all the numbers there, but does that make sense? Like, it's literally that easy to undo all your hard work. And I know that's a bit disempowering for people to hear, but 5 to 2 is not a good ratio, right? You don't have to be perfect with your diet. You can afford a little blowout from time to time. I'm not going to encourage that, but you can have the occasional cheat day. I would be careful with how you frame that. But we're talking every 2 weeks. We're talking every 3 weeks, every month. And then you won't even see that on the scale. You'll kind of get away with that, quote unquote. I'm not saying it's right, it's the right approach, but you'll get away with that. But 5 to 2 is a much worse ratio that's going to be far more disruptive to your results. So what's the solution here? You need to start treating weekends like part of the plan. And I know you've got all these things you want to do on the weekend, and you want fun and enjoyment, and food is kind of part of that. Honestly, make it about, the reframe on this is you make the weekends about the activities and the things you want to feel. So relaxation, bit of adventure, bit of enjoyment, bit of free time, bit of downtime. You make it about those things and the activities that produce those feelings in you rather than about the food. You need to break that association. It's hard, but you'll do it. Like, you will see that you can have fun on the weekends without gluttony, right? Without major indulgence. And look, if you do want a little bit of flexibility on the weekend so it still feels somewhat fun for you, then you can do it. But like I said on point number 4 here with eating out too often, build it into your diet, account for it, right? Cut something else so you can fit it in. Be a little bit flexible if you want to on the weekend so it doesn't feel too perfectionistic and arduous to stick to an otherwise very, very clean diet. So that's the solution. Think of the weekends not as a free-for-all, as part of the plan. Use a bit of rule bending there if you need to, but generally speaking, understand you can completely undo 5 days of good hard work with just 2 days. Not even crazy blowouts, but just 2 days where you're a little bit less guarded. Sadly, that is the case. The big takeaway here then, as we consider all of our silent killers, eating for health isn't always the same as eating for weight loss. Your diet can look really healthy on paper. If loads of these silent killers are at play though, and very regularly, that scale ain't gonna budge. That's precisely why I've come to the conclusion that structure and having even just a little bit of precision really does matter. It really does make a difference. Just eat whole foods and you'll lose weight. This is what you often hear on the internet. I think that's far too vague. I think you do need more structure and precision. And I'm not talking about obsessively tracking, counting every single calorie and macro you consume, but in my experience, I think you do need some kind of framework that tells you the right portion sizes for you or figures those things out over time. The kinds of meals that will lend themselves to your weight loss needs. The composition of food groups and carbs, protein, fat. I don't want to make this overwhelming, but you do need something that puts you in a box instead of just this vague free-for-all of just eat whole foods and you're gonna lose weight. Yeah, but what? How much? Why? How? What? No boundaries, no rules there beyond just eating healthy? This is a massive trap I see people falling into. You need a framework that combats it. And you also need to learn, I find, so you don't have to be utterly perfectionistic, how to build in that flexibility. So you can have, as I say, the liquid calories and you can still eat out and get great results, but these things are accounted for because they're part of your plan, not an addition to your plan. And this is exactly what I teach inside Slim and Sustain, right? It's about building simple but repeatable meal habits that help you lose weight but without too many of the extremes or too much perfectionism that's not going to be realistic for your lifestyle. If that's what you need, I'll leave a link to it somewhere down below. But hopefully me going over these silent killers today gives you some ideas about what you need to fix in your otherwise really healthy diet when you're left scratching your head thinking, hold on, I'm doing all the right stuff. Why ain't that scale budging? See you in the next one.